going to get started and welcome you to the Let's Talk at KWS. This month, our discussion is on stress management, and I am graced by the presence of our support staff from the Student Health and Counseling Services. Brittany's here today, and she's going to take over this session at some point, but I'm just going to go through our regular housekeeping so that we're all on the same page. Please mute your microphone until you're willing to contribute to the discussion. And let me make sure I am recording here. Oh, our dean's trying to get into the session, so let me make sure I let him in too. Here we go. So if you're gonna put anything in the chat box, know that I do save the chat box as well. At the end of the session, I like to save the chats because sometimes students will privately message me something that I need to address directly to the student. And so that's my way of like double checking that I did everything. Okay, so you can feel free to use the chat box to add comments or ask questions. And I ask you to listen with respect, right? Try not to interrupt other folks, but we definitely want to make sure everyone has a chance to ask questions or speak. Really approach this open-mindedly and try to use I statements. So I feel or felt blank when whatever happened because, and explain your why. So think with your brain and your heart and share the talking time permitted with others. It's okay if you feel uncomfortable about some of the things that we might cover today. I have this belief that through struggle, there's growth. And so we're going to get through this. And if any items need to get put into a parking lot, know that I take notes, physical notes on, with my old fashioned pencil here, and I come back to them later on. So because we do have a culinary school, I just love this saying, stress spelled backwards is desserts. A lot of times we do use humor to help us get through really stressful times. And when you hear, there goes Chef Erica, appreciates that. And when you see what some of our instructors had to say in their tips for, how do we manage stress? What are some of the things that we do? And that's the question I actually posed to them. What do you do to help you manage your stress? And they had a lot of great insight. So some wisdom for our faculty. The fact is that stress management is a necessity. You have to incorporate it into your life, especially now. And if you haven't been doing that as a daily practice, then right now is feeling like even more anxiety ridden. I know I'll be transparent. I had to ask my boss, Dean Palakirthi, for a mental health day, like not too long ago. I was like, listen, I'm really feeling it right now. Like, I just need to take a day off. There's just so much coming at me from every direction. And that's what days off are for. So if you have acquired time off in your workplace, use it. If you know you're at that point where you just can't handle one more thing, you have to listen to your mind, body, spirit, okay? From Dr. Huffman, he had so many great tips. He said, get outside, visit a park. He's our Parks and Rec guy. So he has a quote from John Muir that I'm going to share, but he's like, John Muir had it right. He said, read a good book, like take your mind off of the stuff that, is stressing you out a little bit. Listen to some music. So I was playing a mellow music playlist on Spotify just to kind of set the tone for today's session. Time flies, and he actually said time flies lures for fishing. So he finds fly fishing really soothing. When possible, exercise, ride a bike or walk. And a lot of our instructors actually talked about exercise as a part of your daily regimen to just kind of stress relief. And I know our dean wakes up early in the morning and he's on his treadmill doing his thing and reading, a lot of articles, because he sends us articles every day to read. And then when working, get up and stretch every hour. So give yourself a break, even when you're in that zone of trying to get something done. Give yourself a short break. So that's what Dr. Huffman does to handle stress. And this is his quote from John Muir from 1901, who said, climb the mountains and get their good tidings. Nature's peace will flow into you as sunshine flows into trees. The winds will blow their own freshness into you, and the storms their energy, while cares will fall off like autumn leaves. And I do believe that, like, I'm a Girl Scout, y'all know that. So when you're out in nature, like, there's just like this peace in the breeze and just seeing all the greenery and stuff that really does calm you down. I had one student who shared that My stress management is taking my dog to Shelby Farms Park, and I have to do that every other day or else I think I'm going to lose it. And so I said, well, then you know what? You keep doing that. Please keep doing that, because we want you to be able to manage all this. We had Crystal Beeman, one of our sport and leisure management instructors. She said, waking up real early has been helping her manage the stress. I'm much more productive and I ease into my daily tasks. So it sounds like, and I know Crystal has a few children at home who are learning at home at the same time. So she's just realizing that she's got to start her day a little bit earlier just so that she gets the peace and quiet that she needs. And then Chris Rohn said, really only worry about the things that you can influence. Okay, so it was interesting that he had this perspective, because Tim Ryan shared something similar. And I love this picture of Dr. Ryan here with his mask on. He really had a mind, body, spirit approach, right? And the quote he wanted to share was from Corrie ten Boom, who said, worrying doesn't empty tomorrow of its sorrow, it empties today of its strengths. So if you really can't do anything about whatever it is in the present, then let's not spend a lot of energy on, worrying about that and getting all worked up about it. We can only control what we can today. And I'll be honest, when I've been dealing with a lot of student alert issues, and when I get in touch with the students, so many of our students are stressed out. And a lot of them are stressed out about things that, they really have no control over in the future right now. Like we don't know when there's going to be a vaccine. We don't know, what's happening with the pandemic, or when the restaurants that they're working in will open back up. So you can only deal with what you have in the now. So for his mind, Dr. Ryan talks about the process stuff by talking to other people, write things out, realize and visualize that there are not only much worse events happening in the world, but try to be grateful for the many blessings you have. So writing 3 things down that you're thankful for every day, right? And look for someone to praise for their work, as well as dealing with issues that we don't know about. And I can say Dr. Ryan actually puts this into practice. Like, he surprised me with like a surprise little kudos email saying, hey, I really I appreciate the work you're doing with our students. I see you're trying really hard. So like, even praising another person, you're bringing joy to someone else's day, and that brings joy to your day as well. For his body, he talks about exercise, and then he also talks about spiritually doing meditation and prayer. This is me and my mask, but I have a network that I share with, and we all need someone. So find your people. I've told students that before. Find your people that you know that you can connect with. Don't have the false expectation of having to keep everything together all the time. Nobody's perfect. And, we have to say, we're going to make mistakes, and life is pretty hard right now. And we all get that. So giving yourself the grace. Creating an upbeat playlist makes a big difference. So give me some Stevie Wonder and my mood definitely changes for the better. My class knows that. I take long walks some nights, and I mean long walks, like where I'm going for like an hour or two, just to kind of let it out. And then because I was a boxing coach in a past life, get a punching bag or a pillow and just let it out, like physically just let out that pent up energy, and you'll feel exhausted, but it'll feel good in the end. Similarly, Dr. Hutchinson had some great things to say. He said exercise. He said eat dessert. Now, he's so thin these days that I'm like wondering if he's ever eating dessert. You got to get on him about that, Dr. Fuller, okay? And then he said, break into Dr. Ryan's backyard to jump on his daughter's trampoline. So that's his little joke. He always has humor. That's what Dr. Hutchinson does. So he couldn't be with us today, I don't think. Oh, I know, he's here.
Marta, I'm here. And for those that can see me, the only reason that I do that is because Dr. Ryan first started it by breaking into my house and jumping on my trampoline. But as you can see over my left shoulder, my trampoline's inside my home. And it just seemed a little bit more personal that he was doing that with my trampoline. So I also didn't know that stressed was dessert spelled backwards. So that was really timely, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was like, hey, and in fact, reading your email that you sent me reminded me of that quote, so I added it to it. So thank you. And now this next picture, she looks so intense and like serious here because she's in her fatigues. But this is Chef Erica Steele, and she loves to cook as her, stress relief, and that some people get lost in the kitchen. I get lost in baking. Baking's my thing. So she said, I surround or occupy myself with the things that make me happy and with the people and things that I enjoy. It could be video games, playing with my dog, talking to family over Zoom. So surround yourself with positivity, and it'll keep your spirits up and help you get through a really long day. So I think that's really just sound advice. So like, lift yourself with people that lift you higher, right? Like, don't, if you're around a lot of negative people, that energy is going to bring you down. You'll see that Dr. Ryan and Dr. Hutchinson have crazy jokes in our chat box going back and forth. You know what? Embrace it. They're funny guys, and I love their sense of humor. So from Heather Mahundra, who's one of our dual enrollment instructors, she really changed her, like, we had a long conversation about this, and she said, I practice self-care in the form of regular exercise, positive affirmations, baths and skincare, and keeping a sleep schedule. So she realized that before, she was feeling a lot of stress because she wasn't getting enough sleep. So sleep is important to all this, and taking time for whatever form she wants in the day was important. So she's like, I can't do everything every day. Like, it's impossible for me to do the whole regimen every day, but I incorporate a few of them every day. And she's really seeing a decrease in her stress levels and an improvement in her overall mental health. And so I think our students need to know that the faculty, staff are human too. Like, we get stressed out big time too. And that's, it's okay, but we have to manage it. And if we don't manage it, then we can't help our students. So it's really important to be able to incorporate this into your daily life. I do want students to know about you at Memphis, and faculty and staff. You get into this too with your same UID and password. It's a website that goes, it stems off of Thrive, Succeed, and Matter. And there's a whole mental health component of this website, free to you, short articles that you can read about incorporating some different practices. And it's like that same algorithm with every other platform, where the more you read a certain topic, the more it'll feed you articles. I think this is really useful, especially for all of our remote learners right now, for them to have like resources right at their fingertips to just help them out. But the Student Wellness Center has done a phenomenal job, not only with getting this site for the University of Memphis, but they have a whole student wellness fair coming up, and it's a virtual student wellness fair on October 7th from 11 to 12:30. They have the meeting ID right here. So go in and log in. I mean, you're not paying someone extra for these services. And that's key for you to know, because sometimes getting outside mental health can be a little bit more costly. It is a wise investment to make, but if you need an immediate resource right now, there's plenty on this campus, both at your fingertips and virtually, that's available to you. The wellness resources that are on their website, and I did hyperlink the PowerPoint there. Videos, audio, apps, a YouTube channel, and then they have a whole campaign going for October and November for outreach and prevention. So the University of Memphis understands that nationwide, and especially on our campus, students are struggling with mental health issues, more so now with this pandemic. And that's why I asked Brittany Bryson to join us today. She is in the health and counseling services office. I know Brittany from my days in career services, and she's now going to take over this presentation. Brittany, let me just make sure that I have it set so that you could share your PowerPoint.
Sure, yes.
And I'm going to let you take it over, and then I'll come back with some closing remarks, okay?
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Marta, for having me and asking me to be here. I am excited to talk to everyone. I will say I'll cater more to conversations, how it can help faculty and staff too. This is though within mind for students. So if there are some resources you have questions about, please let me know, and I will be happy to share those. So make sure my screen is up. Here we go. Okay. So yes, I am part of the Student Health and Counseling Center. My name is Brittany Bryce, and I'm the Health and Wellness Outreach Counselor there. So that means I do a bit of the outreach, whether it's trainings or speaking about our services, and clinical work with students too as well. So today we're going to cover our services as an office, and we have a quick activity at the end. If you're interested in participating, I'll be glad to have you a part of that too. So the first thing I do want to address whenever we talk about mental health is that it is here. Sometimes we are still working on the increase of awareness of our mental health, whether it's anxiety and depression. And college age is such an important time in life, because between the ages of 18 and 25 is when most common mental health concerns arise. This is also no coincidence, college age as well. So a lot of times when we get our students, we're getting them in moments in life where their mental health is at high risk or more vulnerable for stress around them. So more than 80% of college students have reported that they feel overwhelmed with everything they have to do for this past year. Also, depression and anxiety were top ranking for impediments to academic success. That goes along with stress and different concerns they have, not just with being a student, but with living life in general. I think a lot of times we keep in mind that our students have entire lives that they are coming from. They have entire experiences that contribute to their stress, whether it's just from school, family, work, being a parent, being a sibling, being anything in their lives that also increases their vulnerabilities. And one of the challenges students have with getting help is asking for help because of the stigma. A lot of people still think of mental health as something that's not real or something that doesn't need treatment or doesn't need help, when in fact, we absolutely need to talk about these things. So not in the just a sense of go get help, but also how we talk about getting help or how we talk about ourselves. Marta, you all were mentioning how you all are humans too, faculty and staff, we all have the same kind of issues. How we talk about and deal with stress also is modeled for our students as well, as they see that we come against the same sort of obstacles, stress, family, and all this stuff, and how we manage it too can give them some dictation of how they can manage themselves. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to seek help. We echo that with our comments, our conversations, and even our recommendations on how they can help themselves, especially when there are problems arise and they do ask for help. Okay. And just a quick data, we do take surveys for folks who come into the counseling center. 97% of students reported that in an anonymous survey that they agree to strongly agree that they benefited from counseling on some level, whether it is they come to a group session, individual session, testing, they're able to get what they need to hopefully get the coping skills they need to continue, or maybe even problem solve. No issue is too big or too small for counseling. Now, as far as our services on campus, I'll talk about what's available to students, but as far as what's available to faculty and staff, just to keep in mind, if you all are full-time, of course, we have our EAP services with the University of Memphis, where you can get 5 sessions through Optum if counseling sessions are ever something you're interested in. Also, there's the link called Psychology Today. This is if you're interested in a local therapist. This has a registry for therapists, psychologists, counselors, social workers in the areas. And a lot of folks have sliding scales or reduced fees. So that's something that you could participate in or research to see if that would be feasible for you right now, if that is something you're interested in. But as far as students and what we have on campus, we are 3 different offices in the counseling center. So we have the counseling center, the health center, and the relaxation zone. Now, right now, the relaxation zone, Oasis room are closed until campus opens back up, but it is available and it is still there. Hopefully we can have that more accessible soon. So the counseling center. We are located in Wilder Tower 214. And any student who's taken at least 6 credit hours can have 12 sessions a semester, or 12 sessions a year. So 6 a semester, essentially. And when they have these sessions, they can either have individual counseling, couples counseling, career counseling, or testing. Now, I will say group therapy, although is unlimited, you can go as many group sessions as you want. But some of the other ones, like the individual and couples, those are limited to 6 a semester. So there's also testing available. Now that does come at a cost for learning disability or ADHD if someone is interested in getting testing or results for that. We also have psychiatric med services available too, where if a person is uninsured or student is uninsured, they're able to come into the center and see our psychiatrist for medication management. And of course, we have outreach available to any staff or student who wants their organization or group to have whatever is mental health talk. And you're able to request specific trainings, whether it's just generally about our services or stress management or anxiety management. We also have Safe Zone and QPR available too for suicide prevention. Health Center is available to not only students, but faculty and staff as well. So if you haven't been to the Health Center, you definitely can for a cost for faculty and staff too. But we operate as a minor med clinic. So common aches, itches, bites, scratches, things like that, headaches. We can treat minor med situations. We do not treat emergency illnesses. So just keeping that in mind for services and treatment as well, common cold, things like that. We do have a family planning clinic in the Health Center as well, but it's open. We normally have an STI clinic, however, they are closed for this semester due to COVID-19. There are no charges to access the Health Center, but again, some things do come at a cost, like X-ray, or if you go to the dispensary to get medication, or maybe even lab tests too. So during these times, the Health Center and the Counseling Center are operating virtually only. And I'm sorry if you hear my dog, I don't know why she's getting frustrated. The Health Center and the Counseling are operating virtually. So when you go to memphis.edu/counseling or memphis.edu/health, there are links on the website to make sure that you're able to get into our virtual waiting rooms to get started with services. Okay. Any questions so far about our services or what we have going on? Oh, I'm missing something in the chat.
Hey, Brittany, just to clarify that the testing is not done, the COVID testing is not done at the Health Center. I just want students to know that. It is free to students on a schedule. I believe it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 to 2, and it's literally outside in a parking lot area. It's in the arts, gateway to the arts, like this little hub on the corner of Central Avenue. And what is the cross street?
Patterson.
Yeah, so I've done the tests. They're super efficient. There was no cost to me. All I had to do was get my UID, and they talked me through the self-administered testing process. And then in 3 days, I had my results, and luckily,
very nice,
COVID free. So I'm just letting you know that it's very efficient. And but you do not go to the health center to get a COVID test. You need to go to that little Arts on the Hub, Patterson and Central Avenue, in order to get the test done.
That is very true. Thank you for that, Marta.
Okay, Carol's so talking about this morning. Go get a test. If you've been at a party that you shouldn't have been to, go get a test. Okay,
go get a test, please. No, thank you for that, Marta. Yes, so yes, we do have testing on campus. It is not in the Health Center, to reiterate that. No, it is in that hub on the corner of Patterson and Central. And all you have to do is show your ID, and you will be able to get a self-administered test. It is just that quick and that simple. So please, if there are any symptoms or possibilities of exposure, you can go get a test. Absolutely. Other questions though, or comments, thoughts before we move on? Okay. So keeping a couple things in mind. Did someone come on mute? I missed it. No.
Good. I'll keep monitoring the chat box, and I'll let you know if anything pops up.
Okay, thank you. So for mental health and COVID, keeping a couple things in mind as we adjust to these times. So routine and finding some control in this environment, even if you're approaching control, can be really beneficial. Because I don't know about you, but routine went out the door, especially those first few months when everything was going, and it was just so confusing and scary, and we didn't know what to do next. Nowadays, I'm hoping we're able to at least build some sort of routine and consistency for self. When we build routine, we foster a sense of felt safety. And when we have that, we're able to operate a little bit differently, a little bit more consistently, and with less anxiety. So building a routine for yourself, wake up times, sleep times, work areas that are help foster that for yourself. Go outside and outdoors. I know some of these probably will be echoed from the tips that other instructors gave, because they're really good and that makes a lot of sense. Going outside, being outside, increasing vitamin D levels. It's been proven that low vitamin D levels can foster sometimes depression and sadness. So when we're not able to go outside, or if we have low vitamin D levels, it is echoed through how we're feeling. So sometimes it's nice to be, if you can check in with your doctor, maybe get that checked out, or if you have really low vitamin D levels, able to get that back up and see what that can, if that can change anything mentally, emotionally for you. Limit screen time for a couple of reasons. Screen time for social media purposes can get really distracting. You compare yourself and you see everyone doing something different and fun. I don't know about nowadays, but normally you do. But also limiting screen time, because sometimes the news nowadays is just not, it's not always uplifting. It doesn't always feel good, and it doesn't always foster a sense of hope. So sometimes we have to go within ourselves to find those things and give the screens a break and come back when we feel more prepared to take in that information. So acknowledging and normalizing feelings of grief, vulnerability, and loneliness. Just know that they're there and that many people are feeling them, and we're doing the best we can to make sure we're able to address them. So for loneliness, try to get connected to the other people around you, as much social distancing as you can do if you need to be out, but also connecting over phone calls too, whether it's text or even videos, to make sure that you're still talking to people and making those connections, although it may look different than what it used to, and that you're still allowed and able to grieve that. Sometimes we as humans forget that we can have two emotions at the same time. You can grieve and be sad and also be grateful for different things. So I can be sad that I don't get to be out and about like we normally would be, but I can also be grateful that I still have health and everything that I have to do. So Mark's just going on to Walgreens on the way home. Yes, vitamin D, make sure you keep that in mind for yourself. It is helpful. Using expressive arts or repetitive movements. So painting, drawing, writing, expressing yourself in some way can be very helpful because our emotions live in a certain part of our brain, our limbic system, so our mid part of our brain. And this is not the part of our brain that necessarily processes language and comprehension like our prefrontal cortex does. When we express ourselves, write, draw, paint, journal, we're able to process that emotion and we're able to make more sense of it, make it more rational so that we can incorporate it into our daily lives. So expressing yourself puts that energy somewhere and you're able to get it out instead of having it pent up in you, within your heart and in your mind. And sometimes it doesn't always flourish there, okay? So fostering connection with others, again, virtually or physically distant, whatever is most safe for you at this time, and practicing gratitude. That may sound silly during these times. What do I have to be grateful for? We still have stuff to be grateful for. It may not be the same things we had before, but still remembering the things that we did, that you do have and that you did gain during these times, whether it's more time with family or being able to sit still and being able to take a break from life, because life is extremely busy, as it is still getting back busy now. But also remembering to practice that for yourself. So whether it is naming 3 things you're grateful for that day, I remember that was a tip from earlier, or starting off the day with gratitude, whether it's three things that you're grateful for, or 3 things that you have gratitude for to start your day off. So beginning or end, whichever one that's best fits you. Altering expectations and practicing radical acceptance. So radical acceptance is a term from a school of thought called dialectical behavior therapy, so DBT. And radical acceptance is really understanding what is in your control and what is out of your control and letting it go. A lot of times we come against narrative, news, information that we just have strong opinions or thoughts about. And radical acceptance is practicing that, like the relaxation of the eyebrow, and just whew, let it go. I have no control of it. And you let it be what it is. And you can only change the part that you are influencing. And if you don't have any influence, it's not for you to control. So practicing that for yourself and developing a self-care toolkit. So we'll do a little activity in a minute that will involve you having to create a scale of emotion for yourself and pretty much an emotional plan. So if and when your emotions go to a certain intensity, you'll have a go-to skill for that level of intensity. So having a self-care plan for yourself can be beneficial as far as practicing those skills. So when you need them, they'll be ready for you. And then taking the time to practice mindfulness or meditation. Silence can be very healing sometimes for some folks. So taking that time to sit in silence, to listen to your breath, to listen to your heart, and be able to be in that space before the busyness hits and sort of distracts you from all the other. So these are just things to keep in mind when it comes to mental health and COVID nowadays. But now let's look at a plan for you. So if you are around some pencil and paper, or think you do it in your head, that's fine too. But to start us off, draw a line like you see the one on the screen, and we'll fill it in as we go along. And I'll give folks a couple minutes or a couple seconds to get the stuff if you want to participate. Oh, and Chef Mullen, so you taking Heidi? I just saw it, taking prescription. Okay, Marta is ready. So we'll just go ahead and go. It won't be too bad if you need to catch up. We'll be good. So when you create this scale for yourself, draw the line and then add these. So 1 to 10 is going to be on the scale. 1 to 3 is going to be our low section. 4 to 6 is going to be our medium. 7 to 10 is going to be our high. And when you're doing this, we're thinking of our scale of emotions. So think for me of the emotions you have in your low scale of intensity, medium scale of intensity, and then high scale of intensity. And that could look like a couple of different things. So for example, clicking on the wrong thing. Low could be annoyed, worried, sad, sometimes low grade emotions where you're still able to do things, but you're definitely feeling a change in how you're operating. As you go up though, so does the intensity of emotions. So 4 to 6 may be fearful or upset or anxious. So I'm feeling a little bit more intensified than I was before. Maybe it's noticeable in my behavior. Maybe it's noticeable in how I speak and the things that I'm doing. But then finally you have your high ranked emotions. So panic, rage, or extremely depressed, where again, it could be noticeable for other folks, but it's also evident in my behavior and how I'm going about life, and also my function. So function takes an important part of this as well. On the lower end of the scale, you have a more high function. So you're able to still do your daily activities, you're able to still participate in the things that you want to in life and have high motivation. On the other end of the scale, your function can decrease drastically, definitely depending on how your emotional intensity is set up. When you're in the middle of a fit of rage, you're not going to be able to go back and do all those low grade function things because your mind is focused on survival, or your mind is focused on getting through whatever this problem is. And until you're able to de-escalate or self-soothe, functioning is still going to be pretty hard to get through. So if you have this in mind, your scale, also keep in mind what emotions show up for you in different sections. What are you most likely feeling when you're low? What are you most likely feeling when you're in your medium sort of intensity? What are you most likely feeling in your high intensity? And what does that look like for you? Everyone can be a little bit different. But I do want to ask, for those who sort of are processing this for yourself, what do you think your baseline is? Sometimes everyone's baseline is very different. But for 1 to 10, like on a regular day-to-day basis, where do you think you fall? Two, nice.
I'm at a 1, 2. Like, I feel like since COVID, I've been operating in this very annoyed or worried state. Like for my health or family and friends or the students especially, or I'm just like annoyed with like things that are outside of my control. So like government practices and mask mandates and things like that. So
yeah,
it's been different during the pandemic versus like pre-pandemic times.
Absolutely. Yes. These are good ones. So a couple more in the chat. 2s and 2 to 3 with anxiety. Yes, yes. That can definitely be feasible. Some of our baselines are low. Sometimes our baselines are a little bit medium or high. So we keep that in mind because echoing the 2 to 3, we keep that in mind for ourselves and for our students. For example, if I'm a student and my real baseline is really 5 or 6, that means it doesn't take much to push me over into that high area of intensity, because the things in life can be so stressful. Day-to-day practices can be so challenging. It doesn't take a lot to sort of add on to that stress and then have those reactions or emotions that reflect high intensity. So a lot of times I know we come in contact with folks and it's like, well, I don't know what was wrong with that person. I just said, no to them, or I just told them my answer, and all of a sudden they took off or they were so upset. Sometimes it's not necessarily just because of that one interaction. they may have already been an emotional place that was high for them, and then that just escalated them even more. So keeping that in mind too. So you have your scale, you have your low, medium, and high. So let's figure out what skills are going to work for each. So what are some coping skills for low intensity? If you're in the low area for like 1 to 3, what makes sense for you as far as coping, if any?
Sunlight, lots and lots of sunlight.
Yes, absolutely. Lots of sun, getting out, walking outside, taking a walk, lots of sunlight. Anything else?
For me, it's the break and also the check-in, like, have I eaten? Have like those basic needs been met? Because I've seen a correlation of like, oh, I haven't eaten for a long time. And so that's why now I'm low energy and feeling a little bit down. So it could be a vitamin D thing. I don't know.
It could be a combination of things, but you're absolutely right. Yes, doing that check-in, making sure those basic needs are attended to, playing games, Erica said, and particularly the video kind. Yes, I like video games too. So it allows us to give that space to have this maintenance practice. So low intensity coping skills can be those basic coping skills that you're doing day to day, every day, to make sure you're maintaining yourself and maintaining those basic needs. I don't know, we're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Is basically a pyramid of all of our needs as humans. And at the bottom are our basic needs, which is food, water, shelter, safety, the things we need to build upon in order to achieve our other needs, which is our psychological needs and fulfillment needs as people. So when we think of low intensity skills, so practicing daily mindfulness tips, if you don't need to, it's helpful to cope daily. Even if you don't need to practice this skill, it's helpful to cope daily, because I always give an example of athletes or musicians. Whenever an athlete or a musician goes out to the court or the stage for the very first time, it's never the first time they've done it, right? They've always practiced it before it happens. Same philosophy with coping skills. Before you actually need it, anxiety, panic attack, depressive episode, things like this, before you need it, practice it. So when it is game time, when that episode does come, you'll be ready with your skills, and your muscle memory will know, like, oh, I've practiced this, I know what to do. Breathing technique, making sure I'm checking on my routine, making sure I'm practicing my daily skills, so you're familiar with it. If you're also in low mood or low intensity, rather, helping someone else can be beneficial as well. If you're in a space where you can still function, maybe even extend to someone else at that time and it makes sense for you, helping someone can contribute to mood as well. Especially moving your body. Exercises have been proven over and over again to expand upon mood and improve how we're feeling. So again, keeping in mind for low intensity skills, coping skills for yourself that you can practice every day or very often, so you can maintain that well-being for yourself at this level. Now, life does happen, and sometimes we do need to go a little bit farther when it comes to what we're doing for our skills, whether it's because we've been triggered or stress is happening, whatever it is, sometimes we just need to do a little bit more. So when we think of your medium intensity, we're sort of jumped up in our emotional response. What would be coping skills you would need here that are a little bit more than low intensity?
I like to have a conversation with someone. I'll call up one of my friends or family member and just work it out through there. Someone that's not a part of the situation.
Nice. So getting somebody else, maybe unbiased opinion or someone not involved, talking it out can be very helpful. Yeah. Social interaction, I see. Erica, that's a good one too. Getting involved with other folks, getting distracted. Anything else come up for anybody?
Chef Bill stole my answer. I just want everyone
Okay.
to know that.
Wine, yes, that can help too. So a lot of times it is what I do, Chef Bill, yes. Sometimes we do have coping skills we use, sometimes substances or alcohol that can calm us down. We are just mindful to make sure we're taking care of ourselves still, but I know that can be common, like end of the day, relaxing, having your glass to chill out. But for those of us who are in either recovery or are sober, whatever that replacement would be for you. I know some folks who go to parties and maybe just get that glass of soda or that cup of water and just have a sensation there too. A lot of times when your body is anxious and it is intense, sometimes even taking a sip of water can be helpful. When your body is in that state, again, it's in fight, flight, or freeze. So it's worried about survival. It's worried about what is it going to do next. If you take a sip of water or do something to satiate yourself, that can help ease and help you feel safe a little bit again. So keeping that in mind too. Drinking or eating something can alleviate that. So I hear reaching out to people, socializing, having sip of your favorite drink, things that can be helpful. When we're thinking about medium intensity, we may be getting a little bit more intentional with our coping skills here. So whether it's using your grounding techniques, so using your 5 senses to regulate yourself. So if you're in a anxious episode or you're having some social anxiety, using your 5 senses to ground you can bring you back to the present moment. A lot of times anxiety takes us away, sometimes far into the future where things aren't even happening yet. The present moment is still here and then your mind is gone somewhere else. So your 5 senses can help you regulate you to the present moment. So you do it by taking deep breaths between each one and going 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And you go through that either in your head or out loud, whatever you're most comfortable with, again, to get back in touch with what's around you and what's present in that moment. Using a temporary distraction, absorb your mind with someone else, with something else, maybe talking to someone else or getting things out can be helpful, and processing your emotions. So if something has happened that is disturbing to you or that is frustrating to you, talking it out or writing it out to make sure that, again, you're activating that prefrontal cortex where that commands you to have more rational thought and comprehend what's going on around you. So your emotions don't stay in a place in your limbic system where they just sort of float around and alert you and trigger you without being processed. Okay. Anything else for medium intensity? And so for our last bit, our last section is high intensity. So we've gotten to a place where our emotions are dysregulated, maybe even our behaviors are a bit off, people are noticing. At this point, what are going to be some coping skills that are good for you?
So this is where I go to my Zen place. For me, it's building things, whether it's doing a Habitat for Humanity build or just building a wall or, of course, you can't build anything until you tear it down. So I'll take out the aggression first and then
Gotcha.
I'll rebuild. So for me, it's symbolic of tearing down that emotion and then rebuilding it up again.
Very nice. I like that, Chef Bill. Yeah. So whether it's something very active or you're tearing something down, rebuilding it, I like that. Any other ones?
I think for me, it's about letting other people know that I need space. Like, so now's not a good time to ask me to perform because it's going to be unproductive. So I need to take my time and space to kind of regroup when I'm in this high intensity mode.
Yeah. Yeah. So it could be also be being very assertive with what your needs are at this time and being very open with that. And that can be, I think, a game changer when we take on a lot as university employees doing things for students, faculty, staff. It can be overwhelming. Knowing when your limit is to say no can be very important between a really, really good day and a really rough day. So as we talked about before, and as a lot of good input was, a lot of self-soothing, a lot of self-care is important, but also being able to vocalize your needs is important too when it comes to self-care and acting on that and setting boundaries, and not just setting boundaries, keeping boundaries for yourself. So if and when high intensity does come, you'll be able to have things in place to protect yourself from worsening situations. But depending on how high the intensity is, we may need to call for help. We may need a family member or a friend who can help us with emergency services. Sometimes thoughts do get to a place where, as humans, they become harmful to ourselves or other people. And we want to be mindful of that for ourselves, and having emergency numbers local and wherever you're located in that moment, so that you can reach out for help. Now, on campus, we do have 678 help for crisis line for our students if that's available to them. But there's also always the suicide hotline, which is 1-800-273-8255. And if you're ever in a high intensity situation and the environment is a contributing factor, leave that place if you're able to. If you're able to physically leave, get out of the situation so you can begin your de-escalation, self-soothing skills, so you can regroup and get back to a place where you are functioning again. And focusing on your body sensations to de-escalate. So again, you can use those 5 senses in these kinds of moments, but sometimes it just doesn't help. You need to just do breathing, just focusing on your heart and on your breath to make sure you can probably get them back down. So sometimes if you start practicing deep breathing, you'll be able to decrease your heart rate. And that way you'll be able to increase your function and get back to whether we're having conversation or functioning at a level that makes sense for you.
Hey,
Okay.
Brittany, since we do have a lot of staff here that's been dealing with a lot of students who are in borderline crisis mode, can you just elaborate a little bit more as to the signs that we should be picking up on when students are in this high intensity range? Because like we're at the midpoint almost of the semester, and we've picked up on some personality traits. We're still getting to know them, but we kind of know, like, okay, this student always checks in, or this student is gonna always send me the email with the extra question, and that's customary. But then you see something totally out of line in terms of behavior. Can you give us some examples so that we know as faculty and staff, like, we need to go and get help now for this student?
Yes. So a couple things I will say when it comes to, the times we're in now, maybe it is a little bit challenging to even point out these warning signs, Martin and everybody, only because when we're in person, we're able to get a baseline for our students sometimes, or even if we have more frequent contact, like, oh, I know such and such normally comes in at this time, or this is their behavior normally. So we could catch changes in behaviors a little bit more quickly than we would now that we're online. But it sounds like you're noticing some things, maybe changes in how students are responding or changing in their quality of work, which both can be signs too. So whether it's change in academic quality of work or their consistency of work, maybe things are all of a sudden late, maybe student has just completely, for some reason, disappeared from classes or from turning in assignments. I'm also thinking of irritability and sometimes even anger, being responses to what may seem like, oh, it was just a question, or, oh, I was just answering your question. And sometimes that reaction can be very off-putting. Sometimes it can be, students nowadays sometimes are very vulnerable and open with what's going on with them. Simply asking can be the start of that conversation. It's like, hey, I've noticed this is different for you, or things are changing in your class. Just checking in to see how you're doing. And sometimes they'll respond with the whole honest truth about what's going on. And then you are able to suggest and recommend any kind of services for them during that time. Of course, counseling center. We also have the psychological center if anyone's taking less than 6 credit hours is an option too. But keeping in mind that for yourself. And as you are checking in with students, also remember to, again, check in on yourself. Hearing about all this information and checking on everyone else can be overwhelming. So if you need to set boundaries for yourself, please do. And just make sure you have resources to give so students can get those resources and go and take care of themselves, or at least you'll be able to pass off the concerns to another person who has more time and availability to help them specifically for any mental health concerns. But definitely watch out for mood changes, behavioral changes, and narrative or language changes. Maybe if their narrative becomes much more negative or more focused on not doing things or not progressing as they normally did. Just all of those things, keeping in mind to do check-ins within your limits and within what you're able to do.
Great advice there. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions, though?
Brittany, I had a question. Do you find that there's a difference in coping skills between someone who is an introvert versus someone who's an extrovert? For me, I'm an extroverted introvert. So I'm perfectly fine in a crowd in a situation, but after 3 days of that, I'm going to go into a room somewhere and turn the lights out for a couple of days.
Absolutely.
I don't necessarily always engage with people when I'm experiencing something. A lot of times I internalize it.
Mm.
Yeah, I was wondering if there's a difference in those sort of styles.
Sometimes it is, Chef Bill. So I think too, it's more so about perhaps it's a combination of style and what we need coping for. So my thought is always that, it's not in this PowerPoint, it's in a different chart. So when we think of our symptoms, if we have symptoms that are agitating us or active, so maybe we have shakiness and anxiety and our body needs to move, or sometimes if we're the extrovert and we know we need to bounce around and we do all these things and it's exciting. If we want to calm down or come down from that intensity, we need coping skills that will calm us. Versus maybe we are in a low mood and we don't have a lot of energy and we don't want to move. We need coping skills that will increase that intensity. And those are different types of skills. So maybe coping skills that will increase our intensity are the movement, are the exercises, are parts of that routine that we can do on the day-to-day basis, are things that will give us movement and excitement. Versus things that would calm us are things that would make us be still or quiet or more introverted and silent. So there are differences between our preferences and actually what we need in the moment to get to the comfort level or the baseline that we're trying to achieve.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other thoughts or questions? No? Well, I hope that you were able to have a plan or create a plan for yourself based on your emotional intensity or based on what has happened in the past or what could happen. So again, you will be prepared for when it does, a go-to plan for yourself. And these are just some additional resources that are on our website or on our social media pages, different apps that you could always access. Headspace and Calm are great for mindfulness and meditation apps, and also some guides when it comes to dealing with anxiety and coronavirus in today's world and society, but again, are available on our website and our links as well. Lastly, our social media pages. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We also just started a podcast. Lots of topics on there that can be very helpful, between like 15-minute, 20-minute podcasts that can be about stress, anxiety, sexual health and self-care, racism and self-care, just things to sit and listen, talk to for yourself. And also too, just events. I know Marta talked about the wellness fair, just a reminder about that. Please tell your students, or even you come and we'll be talking to a different office every 10 minutes about the resources still available to students even during these times. Chef Bill, you're very calming and you make Dr. Hutchinson less stressed. Very nice.
It is. I don't know if it's the microphone, but it's just very smooth. It's a great voice, especially for radio.
I've been told I have a great voice for radio, but not necessarily the face for television. I think the camera puts on 10 pounds, and I had like 4 of them at one point.
Well, if you ever would like to be in our podcast, Chef Bill, we would love to have you. The ASMR, yes, the ASMR too. Let's see. Oh, a couple more things. So pulling up everything else for me. Here we go. So this is our contact information too. Again, the Relaxation Zone or ACES Zone or Oasis Room are closed for this semester. But we have the Counseling Center and the Health Center still open. Again, just simply going to memphis.edu/counseling to access services, and you'll let students know that. Also a reminder too, for full-time faculty and staff, we have those EAP sessions with the university, and also things like Psychology Today and even psychological services, because they serve the community too as well.
Brittany, I had a question from a student that came in a while back, and they were just curious to know, like, what is a telehealth appointment like? Like, they just didn't know what they were getting into, and there was a little bit of a fear of the unknown, and I kept trying to assure them that it was going to be okay. So can you just, like, like, what's it like when you go in to set it up? And then like, what's the process when you're there when it's telehealth?
Yes, yes. So if it may be new to some folks, so the thing is, telehealth has been around since the 80s. It's not really new. It's new to us because it's becoming more prevalent, but it's been around. It is something that has been established and maintained and is just as effective as in person, and can be something that is just as effective and helpful as coming into a therapist's office. So in our situation, we have a program called DoxyMe that we work off of. It's our platform. So when a student goes to the website, memphis.edu/counseling, there'll be another link there that goes, come to our waiting room here. And when a student clicks that link, they're transferred to doxy.me, so doxy.com. And it'll be our specific waiting room for the University of Memphis. And as soon as you pop in, you'll be asked to add your name and you'll be added to our waiting room. In that waiting room, you'll wait for just a second before one of our admin staff pops up on your screen, like, hello, looks like anyone answering the phone or answering a chat, and then we'll talk about what brings you into services. So at that point, you'll fill out the paperwork that you would normally do when you come to the office, triage paperwork. And once you do that, again, on your computer, the same time you're all doing all this, when you're done with your paperwork, you'll meet with a therapist, and that therapist will talk about the paperwork you filled out, the concerns that you have coming in, and what it feels like to go through all of this and how we can best help you, whether it's individual, counseling, or group. And after that, you'll close that session, so you X out of it. And the next time you meet with your therapist, it'll just be you and that person one-on-one, and you'll start sessions just like this. It's very similar to if you ever FaceTime anyone or Skype anyone. It's just this time, it's your therapist.
Okay, that's going to be helpful. In fact, I'm going to send this recording to that student who couldn't be here today, but did have a question. So thanks.
Sure. Yeah. Any other questions though from today? We do have a feedback survey if you do have a second to fill that out, but happy to answer more questions.
Okay, folks, so pull out your smartphones here so that you can pick up that QR code. Because I do know that the Health and Counseling Services Center really do look at all these evaluations in depth. So please do that for her. I am going to share a few more things because we only have a few more minutes. So if you wouldn't mind stopping your share, and I'm just going to go back up in time. Let's see how this technology works with us right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there is Brittany's contact info, again, just in case you need it and want to get in touch with her. Our next Let's Talk session, and I don't know, are you all seeing my screen now? I hope so. Are you seeing it? Okay. Our next Let's Talk section is not going to be on stress management. I'm sorry about that. Unless we really need it, then we'll do it again. But October 20th, 2020, we're going to encourage our registered student organizations, because I've been getting questions about registered student organizations. So we're going to have a presentation about that, and a platform called Momentum, which is the UM is capitalized, and it's about crowdfunding for campus causes. So we have Jack Callahan visiting us for that. And as always, if you have comments or want to share ideas for future topics, please let me know. As you know, we're running this monthly, and we're now going to be segueing into recording the video in, as I put it, Chef Bill cooks the video for me. And we'll put it on our YouTube channel and share the link. So before I move on, because I want to be respectful of time, and it is 4 o'clock, any other questions, comments, concerns right now? Something popped up in the chat. Okay. Okay. So Chef Erica, we'll have the presentation. So when you see it, you'll be able to pull it up on your and scan the QR code then. Unless you have a link that you want to put in the chat, I could put that out there too, Brittany. But thank you. Okay. Chef Bill hooked her up. That's Chef Bill for you. Okay, so thanks so much for your participation, and thank you faculty and staff for being here. I think you're helping our students feel like it's normal, and that makes a huge difference. So thank you so much. I appreciate all that you do, and you know me, go Tigers go.